Chris, are you having a good time on this podcast? Can I get a genuine?
Hey, I'm having a great time on this. I'm loving it. The only problem is I ran out of coffee like 20 minutes ago.
Welcome back to The Responsible Edge, the podcast exploring how to balance profit with purpose in an increasingly complex world. I'm Charlie Martin, your host, founder of TrueMark and the Anti-Greenwash Charter. And our article today is titled The Limits to Hybrid and Remote Work, which was going to help us explore whether remote work really delivers freedom or just new forms of control. And I'm absolutely thrilled to say, joining me all the way from Las Vegas today is my guest, Christopher Carter, 4-time best-selling author, founder of Approyo, and a leading voice in global AI and cloud innovation. Chris, it's absolutely brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Charlie, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent stuff, Chris. Now, I have very briefly introduced sort of two key areas for you, your authoring and obviously your founder and CEO position at Approyo. Would you mind just giving us, for those listeners and viewers who aren't aware of you and your work, a bit more of a flavor as to sort of what your work entails at the moment?
Yeah, I'm knee deep into artificial intelligence. I've been working with companies around the globe on what AI is, why it is, what they really should be looking at for ROI-based benefits. It's interesting that organizations still look at artificial intelligence and say, oh, we'll just put this up, or we'll use this, and we'll do that in this particular. They have no idea about their data, their security, what application to use, who to use with it, who to run it. And so I've been working with companies wrapped around that. I've got a side project that I'm working on with Mugatu AI and homomorphic encryption of AI-based data centers or data sets. But for the most part, it's AI all day, every day.
Now, that's super interesting. And obviously, great to have such an expert on the show. I want to ask, like, obviously, when you started your career, I mean, AI was certainly not on everyone's, lips and everybody's sort of front and center in their minds. How do we get here, Chris? Like, what can you share? Maybe a really key kind of formative experience that has ultimately inspired you to do what you've done in your career?
Yes, I actually can, and I can name where that happened. Individuals started talking about machine learning many, many years ago, and I was literally clumping systems together so I could get more horsepower out of them. Well, people just started putting a nice GUI wrapper on that machine learning and calling it artificial intelligence or AI. Because literally what you're doing is you're harnessing the power of a number of systems, or as big as a system as a chipset and data set as you can. And you're trying to get as much information out of a computer rather than a human being. Well, the cool thing was when I was starting to do that, we had already started to try kind of process and move that process along. Well, people had to still create large language models, small language models, and they had to get in depth into it. I'm a huge small language model guy. I like to get deep into the dirt and really get to the granulars of the sand and activities there. Most people just go large language model, ChatGPT and OpenAI and some of the things that are going on with the basic web that's out here. And we're on computers. So right here is a website and they're using that for data. I personally like to get very, very granular, and I like to use my data to be able to make decisions. And that's where it really started. I started playing with those machine learning devices back at Georgia Tech in college. And I just expanded upon that greatly. And that's, Chris, to hear that sort of the fact that you have been, working in this space for essentially all of your career, especially when I think there are a lot of people, as you've alluded to, this whole, it's very in vogue. It's very, it's very much on everybody's lips, the terms machine learning, AI, etc. But you very much have seen it through from its sort of very early inception when it was viewed in a different light with different terminology through to what it is now. Has anything about the development and growth of AI and its perception in the kind of mainstream surprised you? I would say the speed, to be honest, the new direction of the chipsets. I remember working on old Intel environments. Now Intel's not even playing in this space until AMD and NVIDIA gave them funding to come back into this space. So the speed in which activity is happening is just blowing my mind. I remember you just chunking together a bunch of x86 environments, getting these things all together so I have some greater speed, maybe using some virtualization with VMware. And now, literally, you just put in a new chipset and you have just increased your speed capacity and your data capacity 10, 20, 50, sometimes 100-fold. So I would say the biggest thing that I've seen literally in the last 5 years is the speed in which we can make decisions and use those tools now.
Super interesting. And just to talk about you personally, because I know, and it's very easy with your technical know-how to dive into perhaps some of your technical observations on things. But thinking about you personally, when you think about the rest of your career from this point onwards, like, what is it what's driving you in terms of what you're trying to succeed with? What would success look like when you consider the rest of your career from this point onwards?
So hopefully for the next 4 years, and I hope to retire in 4 years at 60, my whole goal is wrapped around homomorphic encryption with AI-based predictive analytics. I want companies to understand that they need to have clean, secure data in order to make the right decisions. I don't want any company going out into the world, taking somebody else's data and using that as their own leverage and mixing it in. That's kind of like mixing Coke and Pepsi together. That's not going to taste very well, and it's not going to be something that you want to utilize. You want your clean, succinct, secure data. So with homomorphic encryption, and by we use a tool called Cloakworks from Got2 AI, it is your data, secured, can never be stolen. There's no keys available for others to be able to take it away. I want people to see secure, clean data to make the best and most optimal decisions for their organizations.
Chris, that's really interesting. Can I ask probably a very naive and simple question with that? If you're only ever utilizing your own data, then are you missing out on the influence of other data sets that aren't your own and that you don't own, essentially, that could be useful in improving the kind of analysis and the sort of function of your AI tools that you're operating with?
So let's take that assumption right there. If you're using someone else's data to make sales decisions for your organization, the holiday season's coming up, Christmas is coming up. Do you want your information and someone else's information to give you the details that you need to be able to ship products, to be able to sell products, to be able to make decisions from a retail basis, from a warehouse basis? If you're using your data, you can predict from the past what the future is going to hold. Now, you may also be able to leverage other companies' data. But what if that retailer was a $5 billion Carrefour compared to your organization, which is $100 million whoever? You're going to have differentiations in sales and warehousing and so on. Now, if you want to mix data and you want to use ChatGPT or ChatHub or any of those to be able to make sales tools and marketing tools and to be able to go out there and utilize that type of detail, okay, well, maybe mix it around. But I don't want my data sent up to ChatGPT or any of those and being mixed with other companies' data to make pseudo decisions. And once you start doing that, that's when you lose all control of your data. So for me as an organization or as a business, if I'm making decisions on what I have, that's cleaner, more precise information than taking somebody else's data that I don't have any relevant knowledge on to be able to mix it with mine that I do have the knowledge on and trying to figure out how that works together with each other.
Interesting. So, and again, I'm going to probably oversimplify what you've just said, but it's about having data that you know is contextually relevant to your organization and to your operation, and it isn't mixed and therefore contaminated, if you like, by external data sets that aren't contextually relevant to your entity. You mentioned that you've got 4 years left and that this is your mission for the next 4 years. What does Christopher Carter do once he's retired? What are you going to do after that?
So I'm going to write more books. I'm going to speak more. I literally have been on a 17-day speaking and book tour here in the United States. I'm going to do more of that rather than working with end customers per se. And I'm going to do a lot more traveling with my incredible, beautiful wife. And we're just going to hope and wait and pray for grandchildren one day.
Very good. I love it. You've got, Chris, you clearly have it very clearly mapped out, and I love it. That sounds like a very good way to spend a very well-earned retirement. Now, Chris, I know that was a whistle-stop tour, but for any of our listeners and viewers that want to check out, your profile, we'll obviously link to your LinkedIn so they can find out a bit more about all the various roles that you have. But for now, would you mind just providing us with a little bit of an introduction, an overview of this week's article that I mentioned in the introduction, and perhaps just picking out from it whatever you thought were the most interesting points made?
Yeah, so I'll revert back to with hybrid activities. I'm a huge fan of anything that's hybrid activities. So I loved reading this activity because I think that organizations need to look at that from a global perspective. And I'll use my own use case. Before that COVID came into play, we didn't do a lot of hybrid. And so from an employee and a staffing process, we were kind of landlocked to our areas. This is our office here. Let's get somebody within an hour drive there. This is somebody here. Let's do an hour there. Unless they were going to be a consultant that was going to travel to client sites. When that COVID came in and we started reevaluating everything, we literally sat down in a room and we said, well, now we have the opportunity to get the biggest, best, and brightest people. And it's kind of like how I structure AI now. I want AI to make you bigger, better, stronger, and faster. We made that decision from a hybrid model. We wanted bigger, better, stronger, faster, and more cost efficient for us to be able to have staff members across the globe. I now have an India office. I have a UK office. I have a Sao Paulo office. I have multiple entities around the United States, and most of them are 1 or 2 person shops. So we went so hybrid that now we have bigger, better, stronger, faster, and cheaper, as we like to say, on a staffing model. And it helps us with our end customers because we can provide them anywhere in the world 24/7 with our follow the sun mentality. And we can cut our price point down because they are somewhere else. We don't have brick and mortar per se in every location. So that hybrid is huge for us.
Yeah, Chris, it's a really interesting, you described how hybrid has affected your business. Could we go back to the article though? Because I think they've got a very different view on the limits. I mean, the article title is The Limits to Hybrid and Remote Work. And is obviously a look at kind of what's happened for a lot of companies in terms of almost, rowing back, if you like, from looking at remote and hybrid as options and instead thinking about the return to the office. Could you just provide us with a breakdown as to their arguments and their observations in terms of why this is happening?
So I fully agree with what they're saying as well. You look at Chase Bank in New York. They are bringing people back. You must come back to the office full time. I do have concerns, and they fully go into those concerns about the hybrid activity. There's things I like to see people around the coffee pot having conversations and having discussions. I think there's in the article actually made reference to it. More brain power gets brought together with each other. When you're having a conversation like you and I are doing here, that's one thing. But when you and I are sitting face to face in an office or a conference room, or we're brainstorming, things move at a different pace. And so just like Chase with bringing back their employees, just with other organizations, I know of multiple financial organizations throughout the U.S. I know warehouse and manufacturing. They're bringing back full-time all of their office staff. I have no problem with that. I'm keeping my hybrid activities simply because it's more cost efficient and effective because I can get people around the globe. I still see that there will be some hybrid and there will be some activities. But I loved what the article made reference to in regards to bringing back the knowledge and being able to bring back those individuals. And if they don't want to be there, well, you know what? There's the door.
Do you know, and Chris, that's really well described. I think there were two things for me that really struck me from an employer's perspective that are kind of like, one's very practical and one's, I guess, more cultural, that kind of the rabbit's out of the hat, if you like. And it's really difficult to go back to kind of the pre-COVID experience. And one of those is a very practical thing, as I say, around the number of organizations who chose to fully embrace remote and hybrid working and essentially have reduced their office space down to such a level where they physically cannot account for everybody coming back to the office. And there's obviously huge overheads associated with leasing office space or buying office space of some description. So there's almost that consideration. And then the other key consideration is the impact that COVID has had upon the expectations of employees to have this degree of flexibility in their work. Can you just touch upon, I know we're looking at two very different ends of the spectrum there in terms of things for employers to consider, but how do you see those two things playing out as we venture into the back half of this decade?
So the first one is there is a ton of space available. Because of this whole model, there became a lot of space available. And there are, I in Las Vegas here is some kind of funny. I was talking with a real estate agent in the commercial side, and they have a ton of open space available, and it's cheap. So these organizations start bringing back their people. They can put them into facilities. It may not be the original facility, but they can bring them. I know JP Morgan Chase, they went out and they bought more space in downtown Manhattan. So that's one. And the expectations of individuals, I look at that in twofold. I think I'm considered a Gen Xer. I'm 56, so I'm a Gen Xer. I like coming back and seeing people and being part. You've got these Gen Zers like my daughter, who's 22 years old. She could care less if she's in an office or not in an office. Some of them really care. No, I don't want to be anyone. Well, you may not be a fit for this company. You got to abide by the rules and the regulations that the company sets up for you. And if you don't want to do that, you need to find yourself a new role in somebody's company that will allow you to have that flexibility. Now, if you also look at that younger generation compared to my generation, they don't work to necessarily make money anymore. They work because they want time off to be able to go do stuff with their family. They want time off so they can spend more time at home and work from home. They work because they want other things, not necessarily a massive paycheck and to move up the corporate ladder. And so you've got to find those individuals that fit what your business needs are. And you as Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever Gen is, you have to make the decisions for you as a business person. If you're going to work in business, what's best for you? A perfect example is I've got a young lady who just had a baby, and her comment was, I would like to spend more time with my baby at home. And just so happens that she is a hybrid. She's not near an office. So we gave her that flexibility. But at other times, other individuals were like, that's a role that you need to be at that office because you are critical for that office activity. So it's a balancing act. And it's really interesting to try to balance that.
Yeah. And it is, as you say, it is that balancing act of, the organization's requirements and trying to balance that out with the individuals and trying to treat people as individuals.
And then you add AI to the mix. People are saying that AI is taking away people's jobs. Is it really? I want a bigger, better, stronger, faster individual who's at a more cost-effective manner. As long as they're using the tools from an artificial intelligence tools and all the AI tools are out there. I'm actually at an AI event right here in Las Vegas that I'm going to be speaking at later. And that's what I tell people. I don't need I want people who come into the fold fresh out of college, these Gen Zers. I want them already knowing how to do LLMs, how to do SLMs, how to use the tools that are out there. Now, those are the ones that I want in the office, and I want them maybe doing some hybrid. The ones that don't know that, There's the door. You're going to want to learn that because that's a different animal as well. That brings a new animal into the farmhouse when we start talking about hybrid, not hybrid. Are you able to do this? How are you not able to do that?
Take your point about AI, like AI is you hear so much about AI is going to take certain people's jobs, or it's going to certainly support people to perhaps do their jobs more efficiently, which means that teams don't need to be as big to deliver certain functions. And that's an observation, isn't it, in terms of the sort of short to medium term? Is there almost like a suggestion that within that kind of environment, that actually the people skills and the ability to be able to engage and build relationships with colleagues, with senior people within an organization, that's the crucial thing for a lot of people to look to do in order to protect themselves in many ways and to ultimately realize the kind of promotions, etc., that would allow them to sort of go up the corporate ladder. Do you see that coming together as,
yes,
you want to be remote and you want to be hybrid, etc., but don't forget that in order for you to stick around, you need to cultivate those relationships with the people within your organization, which is much better done in person.
Bingo. That's what the power of being together does. It cultivates relationships. Now, you don't have to go out to the pub and you don't have to go out to lunch with everybody in the office. But what is good is to have them see your face, talk to them when you're at the coffee. I as a CEO, I stood at that coffee area and I would catch up. I didn't care if you were the most junior level person or you if one of my most senior level people. You know what? If I was in there, hey, can I make you a cup of coffee? Hey, how was your weekend? Hey, what are you doing? What are the projects you're working on? You know, I came up with this idea. Is there any chance you might be able to take that and run with it? Those are the things. If I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll just send my admin something and she can go do something. I'm not interacting with them. So now reverse that to a junior individual within our organization. And if they don't have that ability to be able to get some FaceTime with me or one-on-one with 173 people around the globe, it's a little bit harder for them to get those. Then you're only basing HR-based moves on what you get from managers instead of, oh, you know what? She took some initiative. I was talking with her and she said, hey, Mr. Carter, let me take care of that for you. I've got an idea. And then she presented to me and holy cow, the presentation was fantastic. She did a great job. She got it to me in a very timely fashion. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to send that over to HR and be like, hey, keep an eye on this person. They could be going somewhere within this organization. They did a fantastic job on this project for me.
So we can almost say, Chris, that when we think about those Gen Zers that, as you described, perhaps more concerned about the flexibility than anything else in their roles, that actually they need to have the foresight to understand that in order to both protect and thrive in their roles, they need to prioritize the building of those relationships. And that's what being in the office enables them to do.
Amen. Exactly.
It's fascinating. You don't really hear it.
It's a horse apiece, 50-50. What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to grow with your life? It's a different animal nowadays.
And let me ask you, moving on slightly from looking at this from an employee's perspective, you've kind of touched upon it there. I think the article alludes to it as well. When we talk about cultivating culture, that's it's often such an ambiguous, such a difficult thing to pin down as to, well, what on earth is that? And how do you produce a good one? And how do you maintain a good one? Ultimately, within a hybrid or remote context, how do you cultivate and maintain a good working culture? Is it just as simple as, making sure that there are periodic team gatherings where you get everybody together in Las Vegas to have, a good team bonding session? Or what is it? What are the key cornerstones of enabling a good remote or hybrid culture?
It's tough. You really have to make strides and efforts to do it. As soon as COVID hit, we started doing weekly Teams calls. I would get on and I would start doing Teams calls one-on-one with employees just to ask them how they're doing, what's going on, what projects are you working on. I kind of made it a coffee clutch. I would have a coffee and I would drink my coffee along with them and we chit chat. And I tried to make it earlier in the day rather than later in the day. But then I switched and I started just doing it any point in time that I could, because 173 people is very difficult. And it is difficult to keep up, because with my travel schedule, I could be anywhere in the world at any time. So once the COVID stopped, then I would start taking them out to dinners. I'd start taking them breakfast. I would walk around with them. It's funny. We were just talking about the New York Marathon and how one of the, there's all these TikTokers and these famous, online people like Casey Neistat and stuff. The marathon is upset because these people are making running cool again. Well, I would take my staff out and just walk. I was trying to make walking cool again. So we go out, I would fly into town and I knew who was where, and I would pick one individual each time. And I'd be like, okay, hey, I'm going to slide by. Let's go get a coffee shop. Let's go take a walk, because walking is healthy and good for you. And sure, I use it. I'm overweight, but it's interesting. Just getting out there and meeting with them, it changes a little bit of their mindset. Oh, I'm not just a number. I'm actually Charlie, and I work with Chris, and I'm very honored to work with Chris, and I'm actually honored to work at Approyo and blah, blah, because you're interacting with them more rather than just this video sequence that we're doing.
And Chris, I mean, that sounds, I've got this sort of picture of you literally hot-footing around the world to go and have coffees and walks with all of these various people that you work with. Now that in itself, I mean, especially, with an organization of the size of yours, I mean, that's a full-time job. Like, is this now a core part of your working schedule, sort of ensuring that you have these one-to-ones in person with your team in order to continue to maintain that kind of cultural connection? Does that ever worry you in terms of how directly related to you and your capacity to connect with everybody that is maintaining that culture? Is that a concern, or is that just part of the course?
Well, it's kind of par for the course, but I'm that type of guy that likes to interact with them. I like to catch up with them. If I'm in an area and it's only a 40-minute drive to somebody within my organization, I'm going to take that 40 minutes. Sure, then I can get to an airport, and then I can, if I'm flying somewhere else, there's one of my staff members is here in Reno, Nevada. So it's a quick little jaunt over there. So it's going to cost me $120 back and forth. But I'm going to go over there. I'm going to see them for dinner. We're going to catch up. We're going to talk about what's going on in their world. We're going to talk about projects. We're going to talk about customers. And we're going to have some coffee, and then we're going to have some whiskey. So to me, that's not a bad idea. And it works well.
I love it, Chris. We've gone from the healthy kick of walks to whiskey within about a minute, and that's a brilliant turn of events.
Whiskey's healthy.
Indeed. But is this now, when we talk about leadership in the hybrid remote working age, is this a core part? If you were advising any other kind of leader of an organization out there, is this kind of attentive approach to your people, is this absolutely critical in order to enable that type of working?
If you're going to keep them hybrid, yes, you need to be attentive, or you're going to lose your people, especially your best ones. Make sure that you are attentive to who they are, what they like, what brings them to the office in this realm, the computer realm, every single day. What is it that they want? Is it about spending more time with family? Is it about being able to travel more? I've got people that travel all over the globe and still work, and I have no problem. As a matter of fact, there's one family. He is a great guy, and he's constantly traveling with his wife. They have no children at the moment. And I constantly say, put where you're going to be, because I'm going to be anywhere nearby. We're going to get together. And so we do that. And I think that's vitally important for any CEO, CFO, CIO, anybody who runs a company. If you've got staff scattered, try to be able to meet with them. I get more in-depth and personal conversations with individuals when I go meet with them. This people just they can hide behind whatever face they want to make. Oh, hey, Chris, everything is great, Charlie, just doing it. Love my job. Oh, it's fantastic. And then when I like, why didn't I just tell them that that's shit and I feel terrible? I don't want to be here and I'm not happy. I wish I could be in an office, or I'm having troubles with my family. And My wife and I don't like the fact that we're both in the same house together. That's happened. It's more personal and more in depth of conversations I have with individuals outside of that now.
That's fascinating. So people just generally, like in person, are more comfortable with being more open and honest about, how they're getting on. They can almost put on a bit of a show when they're just online.
Oh yeah, Charlie, I love it. It's fantastic.
Hey, Chris, are you having a good time on this podcast? Can I get a genuine?
I'm having a great time on this. I'm loving it. The only problem is I ran out of coffee like 20 minutes ago.
You're picking up and tapping it. I can tell that you're clucking for your next one. Right, let's move on, Chris. And I'm going to now ask you the magic wand question to conclude. So I'm fascinated to see what you're going to do with this. If I was to hand you a magic wand and you change one thing about the commercial world this instant, what would that one thing be?
Ooh, what's the one thing I would change about the commercial world? I would want individuals in the commercial world to be smarter about artificial intelligence. People just willy-nilly throw anything, everything, and say, oh, it's AI. It's going to fix the world. It's magic. AI is not magic. AI is going to make you bigger, better, stronger, and faster. And you still must have human interaction with artificial intelligence. So from a commercial standpoint, you're going to use it no matter what. People are going to use it. Pick the right tools, pick the right data, pick the right people to do it. But it is not going to completely revolutionize your organization just like that. Bigger, better, stronger, faster. Humans using artificial intelligence in the proper way with the proper data is going to do that for you. That's what I would get them to knowledgeable about. Dibbity bop boo.
I love it. Boom, indeed. I want to now I know you've used your magic wand. Now I want to get your magic 8-ball out. And I want you to predict for me if we've used the magic wand and suddenly that change of essentially what you've described, if I regurgitate it back to you probably inelegantly, would be something like everybody gets a bit more real about the implications of AI and what impact it's going to have on their organization. Once that's happened now. So everybody is in that mindset. What impact does that have on the commercial world as a result of people having that collective pragmatism, if you like, around AI's role?
Oh, I think it changes the world. I think commercialization of their tools, their activities, their marketing, their promotion, their sales, I think it really helps and it opens up and it drives people to be more successful because now you're using the tools in the way that they were built. And now goes back to my bigger, better, faster, stronger human beings are now going to be able to evolve with these tools. And they're going to use them in the manner that they're meant to. And it's just going to make the commercial side even bigger, better, and stronger because now they're doing what they're meant to do. And that's important. When you can do the things that you're meant to do in a way that is bigger, better, stronger, faster, and I keep using that statement, but that's where I see it going, is that's when you see success. You can fail fast, try again, become successful. Hope using these tools will make you the person that you are hoping for, the company that you're hoping that you'll become, and just drive that success. And if you fail, you do it bigger, faster the next time. And you just you take the knowledge you've learned and keep growing and keep moving along with it.
Fascinating. Well, it certainly sounds like an exciting new dawn, a new world. Let's hope that some of the work that you're doing and some of the work that others in the space are doing sort of allows certainly that sense of threat around AI, or certainly distraction in terms of thinking about its applications beyond the remit of how do we enable our people to ultimately deliver their work in a, as you've alluded to, a bigger, stronger, faster way. That's going to be fascinating.
They'll become Chris robots from the Tesla Corporation or from somewhere else. You guys can send Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator all you want, but hey, I'm bigger, better, faster, stronger, and more good looking as my robot. So.
And what a brilliant analogy to conclude on, Chris. You've been absolutely box office. Thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Charlie. It's been fun.
And that's all for today's episode of The Responsible Edge. A big thank you to Christopher Carter for joining me on today's show, all the way from Las Vegas this morning. As a reminder, this episode is brought to you by TrueMark, the mark of trusted communications. Visit truemark.com to learn more. I'm Charlie Martin. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe, share, leave us a review. See you next time.